Hi, Chef Matt here. Today I want to share a really beautiful recipe for an Herb-Dijon Crusted Prime Rib. You know, prime rib, obviously a big piece of meat, can be very expensive. I know it can be a little daunting or a little intimidating, but we're going to show you a really simple way to prepare this beautifully. So to the food processor, we're going to add our marinade ingredients. So some kosher salt, fresh cracked black pepper, extra virgin olive oil, cracked fennel, our herbs, rosemary and thyme, a few cloves of garlic, and lastly some Dijon mustard. So we want to make a nice smooth puree. So I'm just going to pulse this until it's really nice and smooth. Maybe once in the middle, just go around the outside if there's any large chunks of anything. Make sure that all gets in there. Nice and smooth. Just put this in a larger bowl, and then you can either put this on by hand or with a spatula or with a brush. I really like to do it by hand. I find that, you know, I have a better chance of making sure that every little piece is covered and kind of massage it in with my hands. I always like to say, you know, when you cook with your hands, you're really putting your love in the food, and that's what it is all about, especially at the holidays. Use it all. It seems like there's a lot, but this is a big prime rib. So typically, you know, prime rib, it's a very large piece of meat, so you need a lot of seasoning. So we're gonna add this everywhere. On the sides, you can go maybe just a little bit lighter, okay? Just make sure you're nice and generous all over. You don't have to do the bones. You can put a little bit on, but again, we're not eating the bones. And you want to do this ahead of time, at least 6 hours. Overnight is actually better, and you don't even have to cover it. You can just put it in the refrigerator. You know, you need some space, but put it in the refrigerator. Almost let it dry out a little bit in the refrigerator. That'll just help to get a nice crust. I've preheated the oven to 450 degrees. So we want to put a nice sear and a crust on it first, about 20 minutes. Then we're going to turn the oven down to 250 degrees and go for about another hour and a half, maybe a little bit more, depending on. This is a pretty good size one. I would invest, they're not very expensive, I would invest in a thermometer that is digital and maybe Bluetooth. So you can put the probe in, you'll have a little receiver that'll actually tell you exactly when it's 120 degrees. That's what we're looking to cook it to. And then we're gonna take it out, let it rest for about 30 to 40 minutes, slice it up. It is going to be perfectly cooked all the way through. So we have pulled the prime rib out of the oven at 120 degrees. We tented it very lightly with some tin foil. But again, that just helps to keep some of the heat in, but it won't steam it. And the purpose behind that is to evenly let the heat distribute, and it'll carry over. So 120 degrees is actually pretty rare for a prime rib, but we want to let it carry over. So it'll go up to about 125, 127 degrees. So now it's time to carve. I'm gonna begin. This one bone is pretty close to the end, so I'm gonna hug this first bone. And this first cut is going to determine how I cut the rest of these. So beautiful. You see how nice and consistent the color is all the way in between. So we'll add that first one here. That's a nice one to share. And then we're just going to keep on going. Sometimes you have a little bit of extra space in between the bones. These ones are actually pretty close together. Even though we put a good amount of seasoning on the outside, there's a lot of, you know, dense meat on the inside. So what we like to do is just a little bit of kind of a flaky Maldon or any flaky sea salt will do to just kind of finish this. Then I also like to garnish with some herbs. So some of the herbs that we used earlier, some fresh sprigs of thyme are kind of nice to add. Maybe some sprigs of rosemary, nice and festive for your holiday table. And then maybe a couple of bay leaves are always pretty. These are usually readily available at the grocery store. And then we have some, some of these little bits. So add those. Those are really nice. They're a little crunchy. They're a little salty. Just kind of add those in the back. It makes a nice little garnish. Tasty little treat. So there you go. This is our Herb-Dijon Crusted Prime Rib, along with our PNW or Pacific Northwest. It'll pair beautifully with this. Happy holidays.